Have you ever been riding across the lake really early in the morning or late at night and seen this bright boat with just tons of lights all over it and just completely blinds you and you can't see anything? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do to this duck boat back here. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to install Plashlight RGB LED lights all over this boat. And stick around for a bonus tip at the end. I'm going to show you how you can reuse the cutoffs from these LED light strips. Welcome back to our duck boat project. Today we're going to be installing these Plashlights. Now the ones that I chose are the RGB, so it does red, green, and blue. It does basically every color except white. If you want the white, you have to get this one right here, which is the RGBW. The W stands for white, obviously. Now in order to run an RGB light, you are going to need an RGB controller. This is the one that Plashlight sells. It is waterproof, and it's pretty easy to hook up. I'm going to show you how to do that today. And to attach these to the boat, we are going to be using Plashlight's adhesive. It's called the 2100. It is absolutely amazing stuff. We've been using it in the shop for years. Aside from that, you're going to need a razor blade, maybe a pair of scissors, and some painter's tape. And later on in the video, I'm going to be showing you how you can use these cutoff pieces, because these strips only come in certain lengths. The ones that we're going to be using on our boat today are 14 foot. Our boat is not going to need all 14 foot. So what happens is you wind up cutting off these ends and you've got these pieces that you really can't use. Well, that's going to change today. I'm going to show you how to do that. To start the install, first thing you need to do is wipe down everything on the boat really well with some kind of wax and grease remover. Anywhere that you're going to be installing this, you want this to be fingerprint free, because you got oils and stuff on your fingers. And then you're going to want to unroll your Plashlight or your LED light strip so that it can relax a little bit, because they come in a roll. They can get kind of tight. You want them to kind of give them a few minutes to just lay out and get nice and flat. So the next thing we're going to need to do is figure out where we're going to pass our wire through the boat so that we can get down onto inside and actually hook the power up to these lights. Power wire that comes off of the end is inside this black sheeting. It's not very big, and I've found that about a 15/64 drill bit is the perfect size for this. Now, I intentionally left a little bit of a gap back here where our transom is so that we can fit that wire down in there. So what we need to do is just figure out, let's scoot this forward, and about right there is where that wire is going to end up at. So we just need to come in right in there and go ahead and drill a hole straight through this gunnel cap, through the side of the boat, and back in that little space where that transom is. We use a center punch just to give us a hole to get started. All right, be very careful. If you screw this up and mess up my paint job, I'm going to hurt you. There it is. You can see that hole coming back through the transom, right beside the transom, right back in that little spot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually feed it through that hole into that little space and see if we can get it down below the deck right here. So once you have that wire ran through, you should be looking at something like this. Now the only thing you really have to keep in mind is this wire right here will not make a really hard bend without some pressure. So sometimes you can heat this up a little bit with a heat gun to help it bend, but you can't do like a twist or anything like that. So you need to kind of lay this wire to where the light wants to naturally be. So right about there is looking pretty good. Now you have a couple of options for mounting this. You can mount it straight down the side of the boat like this. The only problem that we're running into is we have a lot of these big buck rivets along this gunnel line right here. So I think what we're going to do is actually mount them up to the bottom of the rounded side of the gunnel like this, instead of flat along the boat like this. That'll give us a little bit more surface area for that adhesive to stick to. Next thing I like to do is go ahead and pre-pull me some pieces of painter's tape. And what we're going to use the painter's tape for is to hold the lights in place while the adhesive is drying. Now that very first one over there, we're going to use like a little quick clamp, and that's going to actually hold it in place. And then all the rest of these lights are just going to be stuck on with that adhesive. That adhesive, it has a little bit of instant grab to it. It's not like super glue per se, but it will hold up most of its own weight all along the boat. But the painter's tape just helps give it a little bit of extra insurance and make sure it's going to stay where we want it to. This is definitely a two-person job. You don't want to try to do this by yourself, but you're going to run a bead of silicone, or this 2100 adhesive, a couple of feet down, and you want a pretty thick bead on there. You don't want it to be enough to where it's squeezing out all over the place, but you want it to be enough to where it completely covers the back side. All right, so we'll go ahead and line up the back first. You go ahead and press it into place. You take the clamp and just give it just a gentle squeeze. It doesn't have to be real hard. You just want it to hold it in place. And then you can start working your way down. And about every, I don't know, 6 or so inches or so, we'll put a piece of tape just to hold the light in place. So I'm going to hold this last little bit in place while they're putting more silicone on, and they can continue. We're just going to continue the same process all the way down the side of the boat. It's pretty simple install. All right, when you make it to this last little end of the boat, you can see we got a 14-foot strip and not gonna need all of that. So here on the back, you can see there is a marking in between each one of the connection points. And what you can do is just cut it in between those. You wanna cut it right on that line if you plan on reusing these. You can see I cut right through all of those little copper terminals in there. Plashlight, anytime you order a strip from them, a strip of LED lights, they send this little bag that has these end caps in it. What I like to do is put just a little bit of silicone down in that end cap, and then I will put the end cap right over the end to cover up those copper terminals so that you don't have to worry about getting any corrosion or anything inside that strip. You can see down this side, we got just enough silicone to not squeeze too much out, and that's perfectly fine. But if you got some areas like this where you got a little bit too much, go through there and smooth it out with your finger and make it look nice. Go through there and kind of smooth that out a little bit. If you get some excess like this, just run your finger down and take that off, and then I'll just wipe it on this tape. We're going to be pulling this tape in a little bit anyways. And we'll just work our way down the boat and clean it up. We got the other side of the boat done. Now we're just gonna do the exact same thing on this side. Nothing different, except for I'm gonna be supervising and not doing anything because they need to be supervised. All right, so I've got one of my cutoffs. This is from a previous boat build. This is just a piece that we didn't need from the front of the boat. Now I need to connect it to this RGB wire that we have. Now we're not gonna be using the white on this one, so I can just kind of peel that wire off and leave it to the side. The only wires that we need is this blue, red, green, and black. And that's gonna attach to each one of these. Now the Plashlights, they're nice enough to actually label on there what you need. You got the green wire, the red wire, and the blue wire. And 12 volt is black on this. So this is actually wired up opposite than the way most people think. Your 12 volt positive or your hot wire is always going to be black on these Plashlights. The blue, red, green, and if you have white, that white wire that we're not using, these are actually the grounds. And the way that it works, sends power to the entire strip, and whenever you select a color on the controller, it uses that particular wire to ground each one of those different colored wires, and that's what makes the color that you're looking for. Connect this bare wire to our cutoff Plashlight strip. You're gonna need one of these. This is an RGB connector. Now you can use this for RGB or RGBW because it does have 5 wires. And we're only gonna be using the 4 wires because we're not doing white on this particular install. So the way this works is you have this little flap over here on the side, this little plastic flap, and down in there is a bunch of what looks like little razors. What we're gonna do is cut some of this silicone back so that we can install this into that little section right there. We're going to squeeze this down, and once you squeeze it, it will lock into place and lock this light strip into this little plastic house. And then on the other side, you'll notice that it has a bunch of holes for wires. We're going to strip these wires back, stick those in there, and it has those same little razor thin little contact points in there, and those are connected to these contact points on the light strip side, so that when we squeeze all this together, it will make a good contact. To start, you need to go right in here and you got to cut some of this silicone back. And you're not going to cut all the way through it, you're just cutting through that top layer of silicone right there. And then you're going to come right on top of that strip and cut the silicone back just like this. You should be able to peel that chunk of silicone off. And we don't need any of the silicone on the side either, so I'm going to cut some of that off. And that leaves us with this. All right, now because we have 5 connections in here for an RGBW, we need to pick a side. And I'm gonna go to where the 12 volt, where it's just a black wire, it's gonna be up towards the top. You just open this flap up as high as you can get it and put those copper connectors right on top of all those little razor thin pieces that you got there. And then you will, sometimes you can squeeze these with your fingers, usually they're pretty tight. So I'm gonna have to do it with a pair of pliers. I'm just being a weakling today. And once you hear that click into place, these should not move. Should be good to go on that side. Now on our wire side, all we need to do is pull these wires apart. So I'm just going to cut in between them. And we'll strip them back a little bit. And what I like to do, just to make this look a little better, is I will put a piece of black heat shrink. This is 1/2 inch heat shrink over all of these. That way I'll be able to cover up my connection after I get done with a little bit of heat shrink. Tidy it up a little bit. So after that, it's just a matter of matching up our wire color. So we got 12 volt up here on the top. That's going to be black. So we'll stick our black wire into that hole there. The next one is going to be green. That will go in the next hole. And then red, and then blue. Once you have all of them in there, you can go ahead and give us a good squeeze. Make sure all your wires are nice and tight. I like to do is just take that little bit of extra white wire, since we're not going to be using it, slide it up over the top, and then you can take this piece of heat shrink, cover the whole entire thing up. And there you go. That is how you reuse your cutoffs from your LED light strips. All right, with our wires attached, now we can go ahead and put some silicone. And if you're going to be putting it underneath the back bench like this, you're going to need a small human like I've got, because I'm too big of a human to fit underneath that bench. I'm going to put some silicone on there, stick it in place, tape it, and leave it overnight. Here on this front light, we've done the exact same thing. We added in our connector, we cut a piece, and it's going to fit right in there. And that's going to go right here underneath our front deck. So it's been a couple 5 days, and now we can go ahead and pull all of our tape off the boat, because Plashlight adhesive is now dry. It was actually dry about an hour or 2 after we got done installing it. Our next fun task is I gotta get these wires from the 2 strips that are on the outside of the boat around here. So I'm going to use those zip tie holders that I had from a couple videos ago. You need a link to it because you didn't watch it, because you're lame and you're not following this duck boat build. I'll leave a link to it up here somewhere. I'm going to run the wire through here. I have a hole in this back wall right here. I can run them through this open cavity, and we're going to come out right over here where our electrical panel is going to be. It's going to be about impossible to see anything in here, so I'm just going to knock this out real quick. And I'll just reach my hand up into this dark hole that's probably full of spider webs and see if I can find that wire. Oh, there it is. You don't want to pull it tight. You want to give yourself just a little bit of slack. That way you can bunch all those wires up and make it look nice and tidy. Now on this side, I ain't got far to go, because this wire comes in just underneath the deck here, and I just got to go through that wall. And just reach my hand back into this cave of wonders again and see if I can find this wire. Oh, there it is. So here's my 2 wires for the outside 2 strips. And I'm gonna reach in here, and right there is my wires that I put together in the last video. And this was all pre-wired, and you'll need to go check that video out if you want to see how we did this. But these 2 are already connected, and that is the light that's underneath the back bench and the light that's underneath the front deck. Now, I don't really need all this excess wire. I mean, I got enough room to work on the deck if I want to. So what I'm gonna do is just give myself enough room to work up here, and I'm gonna cut all this excess off. This RGB wire that's left over is good to save. It's nice to have around if you do a lot of lighting projects or you're planning on expanding in your boat later on. Now we just need to access the RGBW wires that are inside of here, and to do that, we're going to have to very carefully cut back this black outer sheeting. So use a sharp razor blade and not a lot of pressure. That is the key, because these wires inside of here are very small and very delicate. I can't remember if they're 28 gauge or like 22 gauge, but they're super tiny. And if you cut too deep, you will cut through your wires, and that is no bueno. So with my wires out, I can just cut that black sheeting away, and I'll do the same thing on the other one. And we'll just set all that off to the side for right now. And what we're going to do next is get ready to install our RGBW controller. Now, if you're not familiar with this, this will do just regular RGB like we have in our boat, but it'll also do RGBW, so that you can add the white if you want. This is a waterproof control module that has Bluetooth, so you can download the Plashlight app and actually control this from your phone. And it has 2 wiring harnesses built into it. You've got one wiring harness that is positive and negative. Now, this is going to be a little bit different than anything that we've installed in this boat yet. The positive and negative is going to go straight to our fuse block right here, which will eventually be installed in this little cubby hole right here. The other side of the wiring harness has all of your wires for your RGBW. Of course, it comes with its own free dental floss. You want to cut that out and use it. And then this black wire is actually your hot wire. I know that's unlike most things in the 12-volt marine world, but on this particular instance, just on this side of the Plashlight controller, black is your positive. All these colored wires are actually your grounds or your negative. The way that this controller works is it sends power through this black wire, and whatever color that you tell it to make, it will ground that wire to make a complete circuit. So if we want blue, for instance, it's going to ground this blue wire, and that will make a complete circuit and give you a blue color. I know it's a little confusing, a little different than most things that we do in the boating world, but that is how the Plashlights work. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this dental floss because it's driving me insane. It's actually some kind of insulation that they put in the wiring, and I do not need it in my way. Now, here is where you have to make a decision in your installation. If you want all of the Plashlights in your boat to work off of one switch, this is really simple. Connect all of your light wires to the correct color wires coming off of this harness, so just match them up, red to red, green to green, yada yada yada. Hook this red wire up to a switch and your black wire to your fuse block, and you're good to go. That's it. Super simple. Now, if you want to control the lights from different zones, let's just say, for instance, this boat, I got 2 strips on the outside of the gunnels. I'm going to use those as one zone. And then I got 2 strips underneath the front deck and another one back here underneath this back deck. So that's going to be a separate zone. And the only reason you would want separate zones is so you can control each zone by its own switch. Now, there's 2 ways to accomplish this, and which one you choose depends on how you want your lights to run. If you want all the light colors in your entire boat to be the same color all the time, but you want to be able to turn them on and off in separate zones, all you need to do is split your power wires, which is going to be the blacks, your hot wires, on the light side. So you're going to have power going out of here to a switch, and then out of that switch they will go to whichever zone you want. You'll tie both of those together. And then for your other zone, you'll do the same thing. You're going to split this power off to a switch, come out of that switch and connect to the black wires for your other zone. So that's one way to do it, and that's how we're going to do it. I'm going to show you here in a minute. The other way to do it is if you want to be able to control the colors separately, you're going to have to get another controller. So that way you would have everything on one zone, on one controller, so you can control that color separately. And then you would have to have a second controller for your other zone, where you can control that zone separately. As much as Plashlight would love for you to buy 47 of their controllers for every zone of lights that you want in your boat, I'll be honest with you, I hardly ever have different colors inside and outside of the boat or in different areas in the boat. I like to just split the zones power only and leave them all on the same color. So that is what we are going to do. Now, we are not going to be using white in our setup, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that wire off where it's not going to be used at all. And we will start with our red. I'm going to take the red from my 2 outside strips, pull all these wires out of the way. I'm going to take the red from our controller and tie all 3 of those together and give them a good twist. Other red lights that we have, and we will connect them all together with this little butt connector that I already have installed. Give that a good crimp. Check our connection on each one of these wires, make sure they're not coming loose, and we're good to go on that one. So now we will move on to the blue wire. I'm going to take my 2 blues from the outside light strips, and I'm going to take the blue from the controller, twist those all together, and we will install that into the blue lights that already have a butt connector on it from underneath our front deck and underneath the rear deck. And then we're going to do the same thing with the greens. There are 2 black wires that are coming from our outside Plashlight strips. I got both of those, twisted them together. I'm going to put a butt connector on this. I do not want to tie in this black wire from the controller. We're gonna have to split this in a second. Put a butt connector on there, give it a good crimp, check our wiring, and we're good. Quick recap for those in the back that weren't paying attention. This wire harness over here is the 2 lights that go underneath the front and rear deck. I want that to be one zone. So I've got the red, green, and blue tied together with the outside light strip and tied into the controller. I got the white wires, which I will not be using in this setup. I've got my two positive wires, which are the black wires on the inside lights, so the inside zone. They're tied together and they are not connected to the controller. And then I got my two black wires, which are the positive wires for the outside light strip, tied together, and they are not connected to the controller. And then I've got the black wire coming from the controller just sitting out here all by itself. I got my two red wires, and we're also going to be using two more red wires that we already made. It's a little wiring harness that we made in one of our last videos. This is just another piece of 16 gauge wire, and normally these would run from the fuse block over to the switches, and these have jumpers built in that we made in our switch panel wiring video that jumps the main power over to the indicator light on our switch panel. Great video that's very, very basic for people that want to learn how to wire up switch panels. I highly suggest you check that out. I'll leave a link down in the description if you want to check it out. So I'm going to need two of those, and we already have ring terminals installed on them for connecting to our fuse block, but I'm not going to need those ring terminals. I'm actually going to be stripping this wire, and I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. I'm going to twist those two together and put a butt connector on there. Now these wires are going to be our main output wires. We got power coming into our controller whenever our main battery switch is on. And then on this output side where we've connected all of our wires, this black wire is our hot. So I want to split that off to two different switches. So the Plashlight wiring harness side, go ahead and connect red wires there. We'll check and make sure our wiring is good. So now what I want to do is pass these wires back behind our cavity and out over here where our switches are going to be. And I'm going to use these last two switches over here on this side of the panel for my Plashlight. So I'm going to plug in one connector to pin number 2. That's going to be our main power input. I'm going to take that jumper and run it over to pin number 6, which is for our lower indicator light. Now I'm going to take that piece of red wire that I got and strip both ends of it. On one side, I'm going to put a female spade connector. That's where it's going to connect to the output side of our switch. I'll go ahead and run that back behind our cavity out this side and plug this one up to pin number 3 on our switch. And I'll use this one as our inside light zone. So I'm going to take the wiring harness that I made for the two inside lights, where I already have this butt connector. I'm going to connect that red wire from the output of the switch over to our light. Now we're going to do the same thing with our other piece of red wire. I'll put a female spade connector on there, give that a good crimp, run it through our cavity and out to the other switch. Take the other end of that red wire that we got, strip it back, install a butt connector, and this is going to power our other zone, which is going to be the outside lights, and I already have a butt connector on there because I'm an idiot and now I can't make this work. And we'll cut that off, strip this one back, install it right here. And we'll take our jumper wire over here and plug it into pin number 2 for the main and pin number 6 for the lower indicator light on the switch. If I did everything right, I should be able to apply power, which on this side of the wiring harness, on this side of the Plashlight controller, red is power. I'll put that on my battery, put the negative on my battery there. Controller lights up, so that lets me know that it is working. And both of my lower indicator lights are on. So I know that power is coming out of the controller and going to both of these switches. If I turn this front one on, my front and rear lights should come on. And if I turn this one on, then my outside light should come on. And would you look at that, it worked. Now, if you'll notice when I turn both of these on, all of the lights turn off. That is because I don't have the switch panel grounded right now. We're going to cover that in the next video, but we do have working lights, and that is amazing. We're not going to cover in this video hooking these two wires up. That's the positive and negative wire. They're just going to go straight to our fuse block. We're going to cover that more in the next video because I'm going to be doing the final install. One last thing that you need to note is this Plashlight controller needs to be mounted somewhere. It does come with holes and a little flange on the side so that you can mount this into your boat or under your deck, wherever you want. The back is really flat, so what I like to do is put some 3M double-sided tape on there, and I'm actually going to mount it in our cubby hole way back here up against the wall. I know it's going to be hard to see because it's really dark in here, but we're going to save that for the next video. We'll give this a little test real quick. Got our outside lights, inside lights, both off. Everything is good. So I'm on Android, so I'm just going to go to the Google Play Store and we are going to search for Plashlights, and we got the Plashlight app right there. We will go ahead and install it, and the first time you open it, it's going to ask you if you want to find and connect to devices. Click allow. Then down here in the bottom corner you got this Bluetooth icon. You need to click on that and it will show you any Plashlights that are in the area. So I've got our system on, it's got 100% signal, and I will hit connect. Once it's connected, it will show you the name of the Plashlights, the zone, And this zone goes by controller, so I don't have separate zones per se because I don't have multiple controllers. And then we'll just go down here, and now you can start playing with colors. You can just touch anywhere on the screen and change it to any color you want other than white. Now they do have some preset colors down here that you can just touch, and that will change the boat colors to that. Now I don't have white, so it's doing this very, very light blue that almost looks white. So if you don't need a true white light and you're okay with like a little hint of blue in your white, there's a little hack for you to save you some money if you don't want to do RGBW. And then once you get in here, you can kind of customize the color, you know, to whatever you want. And they do have some other options. You can go in here and you can do these little fun things where you pick a light color and it cycles through. You can make it work with your music. You can do like a little pulse where it goes to 2 different colors. This one's kind of going out and then back on green. And you can scroll through here and you can look. They got a freaking gazillion of them. There's one where it changes all the different colors. That's just so cute. They got these two. And they have some different option screens. They got some stuff that you can custom make in here that's a little bit beyond my understanding. But 9 times out of 10, what I use is this, the main screen, where you can just pick whatever color you want. I pick a color and I just leave it on there. The Plashlight app, really cool, really easy to use. And there's a ton of features for you techie people that want to get in there and make your own little light sequence and stuff like that. And that looks really good. Now let's check out how it looks underneath our front deck. And that is a lot of light that it's throwing down. You can actually see a lot better than I thought we were going to be able to. You got a lot of light in the back. Let's change our color up and do something a little different. We got some green, and that looks awesome. Really hard to pick up good on camera. That's a lot of light. You can almost see everything in that floor with just those 2 strips that we put underneath the front and rear deck. Try out some red. Oh yeah, that looks great. The other cool thing is, if you didn't notice, this Plashlight controller, whatever color that you make your lights, the Plashlight controller turns that color too. So you can kind of always see where it's at. Let's try out some like yellowish amber kind of color. Oh, that looks good. It's actually very bright. Wow, it is putting out a ton of light. It gives you kind of an idea of how bright these Plashlights are. They're lighting up the whole inside of the shop. Let's go with something a little more subtle, like a light pink or a dark pink. Still gives it plenty of light so that you can see, but a nice color that's not as bright. Got like our green over here, and if we turn it up towards the top, you get more of a white green. And if you turn it down towards the bottom, you get a really, really dark, almost dim green. And that is how you dim these lights right here. You just put your finger on the screen and you turn it up or turn it down, and that can dim it down so that it's not as bright. I guess I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you have epilepsy issues, you probably shouldn't be staring at all these bright lights, but it's kind of late now. That's everything you need to know to install Plashlights on your boat. We love them here at Tiny Boat Nation, not only because they put out a ton of light, but they have a lifetime warranty. They're very high quality, well built. They don't yellow over time like the cheap lights you see on Amazon. The controller is waterproof, which is awesome. I've had different styles of LED controllers in the past, and they always corrode and give me a ton of problems. But these things are impressive. Now, if you want to see more about this duck boat project that we are working on, we've got a complete playlist of everything we've done to this boat. Up next, we're going to be finishing up our electrical system and doing the final install on all of our accessories, front and rear nav light, and our light bar for the front. After that, we're going to be revealing our custom turf job that's going to be installed on this boat. We have to build a trailer for this thing. Then we got to slap on our surface drive mud motor and go give this thing a full send. Questions or comments, we'll be glad to answer them. Leave them down in the comment section below. I hope to catch you on the next video.